Hi guys, when it was discovered that Boris Johnson's former advisor Dominic Cummings would give evidence at the COVID inquiry, we were expecting something quite explosive. And while the language used to describe people like Matt Hancock, who the advisor clearly had no time and respect for, were pretty accurate, it was important to challenge him on his role in undermining the government's message to the public to stay at home and follow the rules and guidance. The infamous Barnard Castle incident was brought up, and unfortunately Cummings moved from being potential hero to showing his true colours once again. Have a listen to this.
Did you drive to Barnard Castle?
Are you asking about the whole thing or just about the 12th?
I want to ask you about Barnard Castle on the 12th of April.
Yes,
Did you drive there?
Yes.
Did you take your wife and your child in that car?
Yes.
Why did you need them in the car to be able to drive to test your eyesight?
Because, well, as I explained to MPs a couple of years ago...
No, just tell us, please.
Oh, I am. So in the days up until the 12th, of course, the PM was increasingly sick. I was getting messages from Lee Kane and others about the diabolical situation.
Why did you... Excuse me.
Sorry, you asked me to answer the question, so I'm answering the question.
Why did you take your wife and child in that car to enable you to test your eyesight?
As I was saying, I was asked to drive back down to London because of the terrible situation with the government. I had intended to go the day before on Saturday, but I was too ill to do so. On the 12th, I thought, right, I'll drive down the road, drive back, see how I feel. And if I feel okay, then I'll drive back the next day. Why did you have to have your wife and child in the car to assist you to drive down the road? Well, obviously I didn't have to have them in the car.
That day, the 12th of April, was it your wife's birthday?
It was.
Was it Easter Sunday?
I think so.
You recognise, of course, that confidence in the United Kingdom government's handling of the epidemic collapsed after that matter came to light and after your press conference in the Rose Garden.
I think so. It was certainly a disaster, the whole handling of the situation, but there were other factors involved with it all as well. Testing and PPE and many other things were all going haywire at the time.
Do you accept that your behaviour, whether a breach of the rules or not, caused immeasurable offence and additional pain to the bereaved?
Well, I'd had to move my family out of the house. I'd had to call on police because of incidents at my house, which I discussed with the police and with the Prime Minister and with the Deputy Cabinet Secretary. So in terms of moving my family out of the house for security reasons, no, it was completely reasonable and agreed by everybody at the time to be reasonable.
However, the 12th of April and the drive to Barnard Castle, about which you spoke at great length in that press conference, do you acknowledge it caused immeasurable offence and additional pain to the bereaved who were unable to see their own loved one die?
Yes, I think the way that we handled it was an absolute car crash and a disaster, and did cause a lot of people pain.
I'm not concerned with the handling, the aftermath of that event. I'm asking you, do you accept that that apparent breach of the rules caused enormous offence and pain to the people in this country whose loved ones died?
No, I think we're talking about two different things. I think the handling of it was a disaster and caused huge trouble and huge pain to a lot of people, and I very much regret and have already apologised for how badly Number 10 handled the whole thing. But in terms of my actual actions in going north and then coming back down, I acted entirely reasonably and legally and did not break any rules.
Notice here that he avoids talking about Barnard Castle at the end. At the beginning, he was asked about taking his wife and children in the car, and he didn't deny that. Then later he says, no, well, they weren't in the car. So he can't even get his story straight. He went to Barnard Castle, it seems, with his wife and children, and his excuse was to test his eyesight. Nobody believes that. Nobody. I don't think he's convincing anyone here. But the bigger point was that this undermined the government's message. He wasn't sacked over this. He should have been sacked over this. He should have came forward, said, I made a mistake, and he should have resigned, or he should have been sacked by Boris Johnson. But he wasn't. And this is one of the things that undermined the government's message. People were not able to see loved ones. People were not able to attend funerals. And you had Boris Johnson's chief advisor getting in his car, driving north with his wife and children, claiming, of course, and he's doing it again, that he felt his wife and children and himself were under some sort of threat. But the fact that when he arrived in, I think it was his parents-in-law's house, he eventually decided, let's go for a drive down to Barnard Castle so I can test my eyesight, which of course was against the rules. But he felt above the rules, like Boris Johnson felt above the rules, like most of the people within Number 10 at the time, partying. Does anyone honestly believe, now that we know what went on, that Dominic Cummings decided to do these things out of some sort of fear? Did he honestly believe that he could test his eyesight and that it would be a good idea to take his wife and children in the car with him? It's likely they went for a walk around Barnard Castle. They didn't care about the rules. He knew that he was above the rules. He knew that Boris Johnson would not sack him over this. That's why he did it. And showed complete and utter contempt for the public. And when he delivered that speech, well, that interview, that press conference in the Rose Garden, the fact that it was done by him, this is something normally reserved for ministers. It showed the power that Dominic Cummings had. He had this hold over Boris Johnson. I don't know what this hold was. Maybe because he was keeping notes. He knew that, well, he said to Boris Johnson, if you try to throw me under a bus, I have evidence to expose you. And that's perhaps why Boris Johnson was so afraid of Dominic Cummings and allowed him to run roughshod over the rules and the guidance. But even to this day, he's sticking to his guns. And notice, as I said at the beginning, at the end of this clip, he's sticking to this idea that, well, I went north and I went back down again to London because I had to. But he's ignoring the fact that he drove to Barnard Castle. This undermined the government's message. Yes, there were other incidents, but this was fundamental because it showed that the government was not holding themselves to account. It meant that people like Dominic Cummings, an advisor, it wasn't a government minister, it wasn't even an MP, but it was just an advisor, would not be sacked. And it showed the public that there was one rule for them and another for the people around Boris Johnson. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.